There's one more event that I wanted to add in before we proceed, and that's going to be listening under the document object. So we're adding another event listener, and this event is going to be called DOM content loaded. And this gets invoked whenever all of the content gets loaded from the page. Now, typically, because we've got our JavaScript below our HTML, everything should be fine, but we want to be just extra sure that we do have all of our HTML elements loaded before we proceed with loading the game. And this is the ideal spot as well in order to load our content. So setting up a function, and this is that get data function. And for now, we'll output, so let's refresh, and we see DOM loaded. So that means that basically we got all of the DOM information and we're ready to go. So we've got a few options. We've got all of our game data available within this JSON file. So we can use fetch in order to retrieve that data. Or if you want, an easier way is to copy and paste it in and use it within our values here. So we can set up another const, we can call it data, and then within here, we can post all of that data information. So notice as well that this is within a format, JSON format, so this will work, but we're just going to double check and we'll console log out whatever the contents of data is as we refresh the page. And we can see that we've got our array and we've got all of our values are in there. Now there is a way to get this information into our project as well from the my.json bin, and I'll show you how to do that as well. So you can use either one. And of course, if you are using the my.json data, then you're not going to be able to update it. If you use the data within this type of format, you will be able to update it. So that's the big difference here. So let's go ahead and we're going to set up and get that data, loading it into the game object. So for now, I'll just comment this one out. And I need to also get rid of this console message. And we'll set up a variable that we can use in order to retrieve back that game object data. So we're using one called game object. And then over here, when we're getting the data, we're going to use JavaScript fetch. So this is new with ES6. You could also use the XHR request. So that was the previous way to do that. So we need to specify a URL. And this one is promise based. So what happens is that it waits till the content is loaded, and once it's retrieved information, then it moves on to the next step. And we indicate that using then, and then we can have another function over here, and this is going to be the response from that request. I'll make this a little bit bigger so it's a little bit easier to read. So this is our next step in the process of fetching. And this is where we can return that response. And we're going to return it within a JSON format because we're getting it within a JSON format. So we'll add that in. And then we're going to add in one more promise. And again, this is just another step. So once that promise above loads, so first once this URL loads, then we get the data and we get it within a JSON format. And then we send it forward into the next part. And that's going to be where we retrieve it back in a variable called data. And then this is where we can make use of it. So we'll just console log out the value of data. And just to make sure that everything is working, we'll refresh our page. And we see that we've loaded all of that object information into here as our data array. Same thing, except we are getting it from our live JSON file. We're no longer using that game object data in there. So that's two different ways to do that. And then if you wanted to insert it into the usable format, you can use game object, and we've got our data. And we got to use data twice because our object is called data. So we've got our main object that we're turning back is this data. And then we need to go one level in within that object and retrieve back data. So now if I console log out whatever's contained within game object, I should see all of that data from that file. So you see that it's all sitting in there and it's all ready to go. So it's within an array format. So we've got a length of 13, and that's perfect because we are going to be making use of that in the upcoming lessons. So you can load that in either way. You could load it in simply by copying and pasting that object information from this file path, or you could use fetch. So go ahead and load the game data, and you're going to be ready to move on to the next step where we're going to be able to start playing the game and have something happen within our page more than just this true yes start. So all of that is still yet to come